Welcome to episode 89 of Comic Book Nation, the official podcast of Comicbook.com. I am your host, Kofi Outlaw, and with me today, my co-host, Matthew Aguilar.
What up?
And joining us back on the couch, once again, the queen of anime herself, Miss Megan Peters is here.
Hello, I meant to do like a full wave right there, but I just really creepily waved.
I love your...
So like, if you're watching the video of this, I'm sorry.
Most of this podcast is creepy, don't worry. Nobody will
Oh, that was amazing.
Nobody will ever notice. Me and Matt add enough creep for everybody.
That's
But today we're going to do less creep and some more suave spy stuff because we are here to talk about the first trailer for James Bond 25, No Time to Die. We're also going to be talking about the trailer for Disney's live-action remake of Mulan. We also have some film stuff to address. The Snyder Cut, people. It does
It's
exist.
here.
And so we are going to talk about that. And we have some X-Men books we got to talk about from Marvel, and if we time permitting, a few other things we need to kind of get in and recap and review. So let's see how this all goes.
Let's do
Jumping
it.
right in. So it's been kind of a spy-filled week. We are still kind of in the glow of Marvel launching its first trailer for Black Widow, which kind of went over, and I haven't heard too many criticisms of that. People kind of tend to generally, or if not, universally love that trailer.
Unless you follow Jordan Vogt Roberts on Twitter.
Who's that?
From
King Kong?
Yeah, that director.
Kong.
Did you see that
Skull
whole thing?
Island?
No.
He compared
Yeah.
Black
Oh.
Widow to Metal Gear Solid.
Oh, yeah, he was
said it
saying he
ripped
was
it off.
ripping off the boss, and whatever.
I just have so
TQC.
many.
Yeah, I mean,
Anyways.
it could be true, but it was true. If it was true, it was in the comics.
Yeah.
It could be true in the comics. Like, yeah, I mean, whatever. Nobody's ripping off Death Stranding or anything right now, so, like...
The only way I could rip off is if Kong literally appears in Black Widow or like something, but that's a different franchise.
Like, yeah, I mean, that kind of missed me with all that noise, but people have been generally loving Black Widow. But, so, to kind of follow that up, we got a return of the original kind of spy man himself, Daniel Craig as James Bond in the trailer for No Time to Die, which paints a kind of interesting picture, but at the same time, it's kind of like the premise we've seen in these Daniel Craig James Bond movies before. Like, wasn't this the whole premise of Spectre? Like, wasn't it in Spectre that he was, like, injured in a mission, he retired, then he came back, and, like...
I don't remember it being this pronounced. Like, this whole movie seems to be
It
like...
wasn't official. They thought he was dead, and only M knew he was alive.
Yeah, so it's kind of different, but I
like,
see your parallels. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, but it's still the same thing. Like, Bond's done,
Yeah.
but he's not done. And
But this one seems like really,
yeah.
like... This one really seems to put an emphasis on he's been away.
yeah, no.
he was on the
he's been-
beach. He had a retirement.
Yeah,
home.
he's
Yeah,
like...
he's like really retired. The 007 program in MI6 or MI5 or whatever he works for, like, has moved on without him. There's a new 007 who is Captain Marvel star Lashana Lynch.
Looks awesome.
She looks
yeah,
awesome
she looks
in
so
that.
good.
And so, like, she has a lot of badass scenes in this trailer of why she rightfully is the new 007. And she kind of holds her own against Daniel Craig in a scene where she's like, if you get in my way, I'll put a bullet in your knee, which is like...
And the other one, your
Yeah.
working
The
one.
one, the
Yeah.
word.
Oh yeah,
Like what a good, what a good
one.
threat, but then also insult to come
Yeah.
in and just ruin you.
Yeah, I mean, she nails the kind of James Bond-ish kind of badass, but kind of sly wit, and like, that whole thing was really great. So she looks like she's going to be a highlight of this movie. The other highlight, I think, is Ana de Armas, who's having like a killer year,
Yeah.
like breakout from Knives Out, and now this. She plays a character named Paloma, who looks like a femme fatale type deal.
Yeah.
She's doing some pretty impressive acrobatics in a dress and lighting up place with bullets and whatnot. And so basically we get this is a rare James Bond in the sense that the Daniel Craig ones have been more serialized, but this is like really like just a companion piece to Spectre in the sense that Christoph Waltz's Blofeld is at the center of this. He's being like transferred, and there's a whole thing with that. That kind of brings out the female love interest from Spectre, the daughter of whatever, I forget who she is. It's been so long. Leia Sadu or whatever her name is.
Yeah.
I forget who she's playing. She's just like somebody's daughter or something.
I don't remember either, but
She's
yeah.
Vesper Lynn's daughter. I forget how it all works. I'm so sorry. James Bond people are going to be ripping into me for this podcast, but she comes back. She has some horrible secret that's Phantom of the Opera masks are everywhere. And that's all just to bring me to the real highlight of this trailer, which is the villain, the Bond villain we get this time, who is Mr. Robot star Remy Malek.
I immediately thought of you when he popped up on screen. I was like, oh,
Yeah.
Kofi's gonna.
Oh yeah, I mean I do.
No, it looks so good.
Yeah, I love Mr. Robot, and I think Rami Malek is a really great actor, even if people like hate on him for the Freddie Mercury. It's so bad.
Oh, yeah, Bohemian Rhapsody.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Bohemian Rhapsody. I already forgot that movie's name. That's how bad I want to move on from that.
I didn't know people ripped on him for that.
They ripped on the people who kept cutting the film angles every 10 seconds.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, no, Bohemian Rhapsody caught a lot of crap.
Yeah.
Especially when it got that Oscar and the Golden Globe. People have been ripping on it. But people just thought, like, since he didn't sing or do all the... He sang, but they didn't use those votes. All that stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know. Rami Malek's a great actor. If you haven't been watching Mr. Robot. So I'm really interested to see what he does with this kind of creepy Phantom of the Opera Bond villain role. They're doing, again, like, the big reveals, which always make me kind of nervous. I'd rather not have reveals and just kind of have a basic spy story.
Yeah.
So we don't have to hinge all this on. But... we'll see, like, what this it kind of sums up to. But what is interesting is this Bond trailer kind of sets up the idea from the title to, like, to premise to just what we see that this could be, like, either the end or nearing the end of not just Daniel Craig's James Bond, but, like, the whole James Bond character. Do you think we'll make that kind of jump? We've been talking about recasting Bond for years in the tradition of... continuing Bond, but there's a lot of subtext to what these Daniel Craig films have been doing in examining, like, is Bond still even, like, a relevant character?
Yeah.
Is he outdated with his, crazy womanizing and, like, spy and violence and all this stuff? Is that still, like, a viable character? And there's a lot of suggestion in this movie that, like, the world has moved on. There's now... obviously, there's a heavier female presence in the franchise now. And this could be a considerable stopping point for this character who's had, a 25 film run's not too shabby.
Yeah.
So I could see something like all of these recastings. I could see something where James Bond might stop, but 007 doesn't necessarily stop.
Yeah. That's where I am.
Yeah, and you get kind of a new start of a new franchise, which... I mean, it's going to be its own controversial thing, but it's not too horrible at this point, in my opinion.
I don't think, because there's a part of me that really likes that idea. I don't think they'll do it. I think the James Bond, like the actual James Bond character and everything is too much of a lucrative thing for that studio to, like, let that just sit and, like, I want to see a 007 franchise with Lashana Lynch. Like, even from the trailer, I'm like, I would watch a whole movie of her. Like, she's awesome. I love the interplay between them. I just think at some point in the near future, they're going to recast the James Bond role, find some way to jerry-rig it to where there's that franchise and then possibly, like, a 007 franchise, like you said, of Lashana Lynch. I just like this trailer because I think this is the most likable Daniel Craig's Bond has been since Casino Royale.
So I have to make this point because it's kind of like, I don't think I've ever really talked about, I've never seen a Bond movie, like, ever.
What?
I have never.
Really?
I've never seen
What is this place I work for? Half of you have never seen James Bond. Half of you have never read Harry Potter. Like,
all right, well, hey,
I know you've
Potter
read
like
Harry
90
Potter.
times.
I know.
So I will say this. So growing up, James Bond always really squicked me out because I think the one time I ever saw it was like a weird like love scene and I was like 6 and I was really creeped out. Now I'm older. And like, as you were saying about like whether or not it'd be time to retire this character, is like, is it likable? Is it fresh? I mean, there's a completely new generation that's coming up and might not have the same emotional attachment to James Bond. Like my boyfriend Elijah has seen every movie and he's watching them all right now in preparation. But seeing this trailer, like this is the first James Bond movie I'm actually interested in seeing, which I think is interesting, and it's also going to make zero sense to me. So now I have to like at least go watch a couple.
Well, I mean, the thing is, Bond is not like a thing you have to keep up with. I mean, Blofeld's a bad guy; he's a mastermind. That's all you got to know.
There's a lot of self-contained
and James
stories.
Bond's with. I looked up who her name is. Dr. Madeline Swan is Lea Seydoux' character, and she's the daughter of Mr. White, who was the kind of the guy at the center of the conspiracy from the beginning of James Bond's whole thing.
So like stuff like that,
Yeah,
yes, but
yeah.
there's not a ton of that.
Like in
or
the
Daniel
trailer,
Craig's whole thing, I'm sorry.
yeah, like in the trailer where it was like introducing those characters, I was like, what's happening? But I will just say this: as soon as I saw Lashana Lynch's 007, I was immediately like, all right, I really want to see this.
Yeah.
So I'm curious to see how many people there are like me who has seen this trailer, who's like, I'm interested in this kind of like fresh take on it. I mean, again, I'm all for like a female Bond. I'm all for another male Bond or whatever Bond that is there that is interesting and
Idris Elba
relevant.
Bond.
Idris Elba, yes.
Idris Elba's done with this. Don't even bring it up.
He does not want to be
I know.
Idris Elba did not throw his hat in this
I
ring.
know, but I
and
just
he's
want-
tired of all the crap.
I want
Yes, he is. But I will just say it does look very interesting to me. I don't feel like, again, they'll completely retire Bond. Just knowing like
No, I think
lucrativity
yeah,
of it.
I
But
think
if
the
they
title is
had-
more just letting you know that
Yeah.
yeah, he might be old, but man's got no time to die.
Yeah, if they want to do like a Lashana Lynch spinoff, though,
I would,
just
yeah.
do that. I would be there every day.
I also just like how this trailer leans into the Bondness of it all. Like that's one thing that Craig's Bond has always kind of had at arm's length a lot. Like Hughes in it and like some of those
Yeah.
things, but like it's always kind of held it right here.
Yeah.
And in this trailer, I mean, geez, at the end, right, you get him coming out and like replicating
yeah.
the logo, and you get the perfect pause of that James Bond line, right? That's
Yeah.
done just like everyone's
Yeah.
Sean Connery impression. Like they lean into it a lot.
Yeah, but this is done by Cary Fukunaga, who is the guy who did True Detective, the good one, season 1. And just like that show, it seems like he has a good strength of playing in genre, but also kind of commenting and twisting it and kind of being above it and kind of commenting on it. And that James Bond scene is kind of like an epitome of what he does well, which is fitting in the iconic James Bond line, but giving it a twist that's funny, which is like, yeah, he's been forgotten. And
Yeah,
kind
no
of
one
thing.
remembers that.
And he's
He's
just
like,
like
I don't-
Bond, and the guy's like who? Like, and he's like annoyed, like James Bond, and then like that's it, which is a funny spin on to fit the like I said, it at once fits the iconic line in there, but does it in a
Yeah.
funny way that's kind of new and refreshing and commentary on the absurdity of the
Yeah.
line and kind of making light of it. And there's a lot in this premise, which is why I forgive it for being kind of like the whole Spectre thing, like, I'm done. Nah, I'm not done. I'm back in. Like, I mean, that's something that's, let's be honest, has been done multiple times in James Bond. So,
yeah.
like, this way is kind of funny because it is commentary and metaphor about how the industry and sensibilities have, like as Megan said, moved on with like a new generation and him trying to step back in as like this old lion coming back again and kind of getting made fun of along the way is something refreshing. And it also leaves opportunity for the film to actually revitalize Bond instead of retiring him, to revitalize him and say, no, there's still room in this time for James Bond, and here is why, and make its case. So I'm not hating on it. I like that we are getting some more kind of modern sensibilities about it, because some of the stuff in like Skyfall especially like was like really creepy. I remember just talking about that, like him, like there's a character they introduced, a femme fatale, who was like a sex worker who had been sold in sex slavery, and James Bond's whole like method of meeting her is to jump in the shower with her in the shower. Like, I'm sure that would have triggered no bad memories in a sex worker, like, and then 2 scenes later he lets her just get shot in the head, and because he's gotten what he needs from her, and she gets killed because of helping him, and he's just like, ooh, that's messy. So that was kind of like, and that struck a wrong chord in a lot of people when Skyfall came out. There was just like, this is getting kind of old. Like, old rapey Bond is not like fun anymore. So it's good to see this kind of spin around. I don't think we should just always do things for political correctness. Please don't send me emails. But I'm glad that they're acknowledging that this is a different world, but they're not counting Bond out of it. So it's kind of a happy middle ground. And I think, this looks like the most exciting Bond that I've wanted to see since Casino Royale, probably. So
that's one of my favorite Bond movies.
Yeah.
And this, I agree wholeheartedly. This is the most excited I've been.
Yeah. So Cary Fukunaga,
So
don't
if
let
I'm
us
gonna
down,
watch
man.
one to like prep me, Casino Royale
I would
would be a
watch.
good choice.
I would watch just if you're going to prep for this. I honestly, there's 3 films I would watch. I would watch Casino Royale just to get reintroduced, because there's potentially things in here that could link back to that whole story of him and Vesper Lynn and all that stuff. And Mr. White and that whole conspiracy about Spectre begins there. I would skip Quantum of Solace. I would watch Skyfall, and I would watch speed through or scene hop through Spectre just to get the whole what is Spectre? How does Blofeld fit into this? And all of that stuff, Christoph Waltz's character, and because this whole secret organization looks like it's going to be at play with these masks.
Honestly, you could just wiki Spectre.
Yeah.
I'm really good at wiki, so
Yeah, wiki. That's the best bet. That's what I was trying to dance around saying, but yeah, do that. All right, so let's move right along, and going from James Bond, let's talk about Disney's Mulan. This is a good one because Matt is our queen of anime. Megan's our queen of anime.
I did ask Matt to write an anime article.
Megan is our queen of anime. Yeah, I know. I'm sorry. We're not trying to do that to you here, man. Matt is our.
Oh my god!
All right.
Try it again.
Megan is our queen of anime, so I'm sure she has a lot of feelings about this. Matt is one of our Disney experts, so I know you have a lot of feelings about this. I watched the trailer, and it looks like a good kind of Chinese epic. Which is an old Chinese folklore tale about Mulan, and based on something real, if I remember correctly. But has grown to be a story of legend, of course.
Yeah.
One of the most popular. And it looks fittingly like epic, like that beautiful, lavish set design, all that stuff you'd expect from Disney and from these live action ones. You know, there's either the talking animals or things that come to life, or the more realistic ones like this, and arguably somewhere in the middle, like Aladdin, with creating these cultures and all that stuff. So that looks good, and it looked powerful with the story of her taking up the sword for her family. Looks all good. I don't know how it's going to get. It looks like it could get murky in the middle somewhere there when they're doing the whole thing of her in the army and the training. But I think I like Mulan. It seems like Mulan. It's a story that's been told multiple times on screen. So it looked okay to me. I think this would fall probably somewhere in the middle of these Disney live action remakes, just because it's not like stunningly remarkable.
Yeah.
It's something like The Jungle Book was when it was a surprise, or of course the phenomenon of The Lion King. But still looks better than like a Dumbo. Like,
Poor Dumbo.
Oh, too soon.
but that's just me. You guys, like I say, I defer to your expertise on this.
Well, I actually think that me and Megan are in agreement, and we seem to be, as you said, we seem to be in the minority. We both don't love this trailer.
Yeah.
Wow, what?
Yeah.
Grenades, you never know. We're just going to have to call it landmine from now on. Because I never know when they get stepped on.
No, I mean, for me, Megan's got a lot of thoughts too. I mean, just for me, I love the combat parts, like those scenes I think look really good just from a visual perspective. I think that looks really authentic, and I like there's one scene, and they use it to close out the trailer, where like Mulan is like actually like facing down and the hair's flowing down. I guess that's post that big reveal scene. That all looks really cool, and there's even a little bit of like that Disney magic, like kind of midway through. The stuff with the father is really powerful, I think, where you see his arms shaking, and they get that whole thing across when he's like pulls up the brace and he's like, I'm gonna do this, and he clearly cannot, but there's a father's love there and all that. That's powerful to me.
Yeah, I like the thing that they really make effective in this first trailer is kind of really quickly spelling out a story that he went to one war.
Yeah.
He miraculously made it back. Now he's a household of all girls, which is its own subtext in the story. But he's cool with it. He doesn't want to he's not hooked into this whole honor system of going back out in war and all that stuff. Like, he'd be cool just chilling at home with his wife and daughters, but he has this obligation that comes up. Like,
So like that stuff, because I'm starting with positive first, like that stuff is what I liked about the trailer. Like you said, though, there's kind of murky thing of like we start at point A and then point B, and then there's all this middle ground.
Yeah.
What's there in this trailer is unremarkable.
I don't remember most of it.
Yeah, it's very forgettable. And if you're going to do a Disney, and like I remember me, you, and Charlie, I think, talked about this with Aladdin, when we were getting into that debate about like, grounding something and like, why are you doing these things? And you do these things to bring that magic from the animated movie to life for a new generation and for the old fans as well. And if you're going to do it, it's a Disney movie. So do the music, go for the songs. Like there are so many memorable parts of Mulan, and Mulan is one of the biggest movies that has like memorable songs.
Yeah. There
is only one song in this trailer, and it's Reflection, but no one sings it. It's just the redone theme that's happening in the background. Mm-hmm. That's a part of why it feels a little lifeless.
Yeah.
And then, yes, I understand why they didn't include Mushu. I understand why they didn't include these things. However, that doesn't mean you just leave it all out and don't like find a substitute. Like you have to have that's part of that Disney charm, and it's missing all that. So while Aladdin had Raja and Genie, and yes, they changed them, obviously, and the Sultan they changed because, yes, things change, but you have to find a substitute and work some other things in, and this doesn't have that. It just feels boring and kind of lifeless because of it, at least for me.
Yeah, this is like the most like unfantastical. Like I don't even think that's a word. I think
if it hadn't had a Disney logo,
it just felt like a historical war.
Yeah.
I mean, I watched this and it kind of, without like the whole mythology behind it, felt like I was watching like Gilgamesh or something that was more of a like historical epic. And I don't mind that, and I understand that what they're trying to do with this version of Mulan, at least from all the interviews that we have taken in about the production and what they've put into this film, is like they wanted it to be different. It's a little bit more of like the Ballad of Mulan. It's not as fantastical as the Disney one. But what Disney has done as a precedent with their previous live action films is they've set up this expectation of having that magic, like Matt said, and maybe it'll pull a complete 180 on us and it'll be there. But like the beginning, when she's putting on the makeup, such a powerful scene. Mm-hmm. Everything in the village. I don't remember what happened for the next minute. And then at the end, when we kind of have like the Reflection score in the background with Mulan actually kind of getting into that like power of her own, like that was a great part of the trailer. And I understand not wanting to give too much away, but they didn't give anything.
Yeah.
They didn't give like I have absolutely no interest in seeing this right now based on what's in the center parts. Mulan is like my third favorite Disney movie after Beauty and the Beast and Hercules. So like I have a very strong attachment. Yeah. So I can deal without the music and I can deal without Mushu, honestly, my lord. But I just feel like there's something that's that inherent spark of like Disney creativity that's missing.
Yeah.
It's just not there for me right now. Production values will be great. The sets obviously are going to be amazing. Like it's going to be a gorgeous film to watch, but I just don't know if it's going to have that same feeling. And I know it won't, not like any of these live action feelings or adaptations have, but I'm more concerned about this one than I was about any of the other ones.
Yeah, and I hold out. Look, I'll hold out judgment. I will go see it, and maybe it'll pull a Lion King because I didn't see that life in the Lion King trailers until like the very, very last trailer.
You didn't see the whole circle of life?
Wow,
nicely done.
Wow.
But and then that movie surprised me a lot, and it had a lot of charm and it had a lot of that. So maybe this will pull that too. But yeah, so far not seeing it.
And personally, just on a very personal level, as this was like my top 3 movie as a child growing up, I had the biggest crush on Shang. And Shang is not like, I know we've known this, he's not in the movie. There is a general, so there is a character that takes the place of Shang. But just the fact that he's not named Shang and he is not Shang.
It's just one of those weird things.
Really
too,
making me upset.
Why did you change it then? Like it's such a weird.
I don't know. Based
thing.
on everything I've seen on South Park lately, kind of China could be calling the shots on this. So who knows? Like they might have been like, get off the funny dragon animals.
I get
all
that
out of here.
I understand that.
Yeah. That'll mess up our culture.
Absolutely.
You want this market to play? You want us to play in this market? Don't mess up our culture.
And right now, forecasts are kind of like, we don't know if Mulan's going to do as well in China as we're thinking. And I'm very confused.
That'd be hilarious. But
that would be
bad.
That would be a whole series of headlines.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll see. These Disney live action things are nail biters, man. Whew. All right, but moving right along. Back to the DCEU. We have not escaped this conversation yet.
Nope.
The Snyder Cut.
Dun, dun, dun. We need
At least the Snyder Cut.
We do need
I learned something today. I learned that the Snyder Cut, I mean, this is, you think American politics is divisive? Like, man, get into like geek fandoms. This is nuts. I found a girl who's been championing Snyder Cut. She got attacked today because she's not a true they're apparently day one Snyder Cutters.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah, Snyder Cutters. That's what I want to start calling them. Anyway,
Oh my God.
but like, they're like, we've been in on this day one. We're not one of these pretenders. Like, bro.
Oh my
like,
Lord.
I don't even know at this point.
Relax.
If anybody still is caring enough to say anything about this, they're your ally.
Yes, thank
Yeah.
you.
Because there's a
Yes.
whole bunch of people who don't give a
Yes.
rat's petunia about this whatsoever.
Zack Snyder does. Boy, he's feeding that.
Yeah,
fueling
that's
that
what we're
fire.
going to get to.
He's bringing all that
So,
traffic
like,
to his
apparently
profile.
Zack Snyder is the one who's heard enough of this crap and is getting the most frustrated by all this. Because, I mean, he straight up went on social media and was like, I'm tired of this crap. I'm getting frustrated about all this. Like, yeah, there's a Snyder Cut. Stop saying there's not. Like, here it is. And he just showed off the actual film cases of the reels of film that are the Snyder Cut. Things like 3 hours. He even gave us a time.
They said it was like the cut was like 5 and a.
No. See, like,
Okay.
here's how it happened. He said the cut was 3 hours. Then a bunch of people took that and ran with it. Collider, I'm going to call out Collider because they did a whole video and embarrassed themselves saying like, oh, you know, when he said that, it's just like basically, I forget what they're called. It's like It's like the working cut of a movie.
Gotcha.
Oh, you're like, yeah, it's probably a working cut, like, and that's not really a movie, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
And then he came back and threw more shade and said, no, that cut was 5 hours. Like, yeah. Like, yeah. And so, like
Zack
shut
Snyder's
it
done.
down.
Oof,
so,
man.
I mean, he's been throwing gasoline and burning up. I mean, the Snyder Cut people are just taking his words and, like, throwing
they
in the
must love it.
faces, like,
Yeah, I love it.
of
They
every
have
outlet
gotten the
that's been
attention.
like pooping on the Snyder Cut, saying the people are stupid, saying it doesn't exist, like all that. Yeah, he is sending them to the wolves. So he's getting savage out there, man. Once that WTB statute of limitation goes up, like,
I mean,
Can we imagine just the dial? He's going to release like a full, like, unclassified NSA document about like everything about this.
I don't think he can because, I mean, we knew a lot of inside information about this when we took a lot of heat, but we knew a lot of information about this when he got pulled off of Justice League, and it's a very murky situation.
right? Because
Yeah.
I don't know if
Like,
he owns.
It's not
Like
just
he
that.
can't release it. Like,
No.
yeah.
No.
There's all that legality.
There's
You
so
can't,
much.
Like, yeah, that. There's also the reasons for which he was pulled off the project are still very murky and questionable. And people are quick to rush in and say, oh, it wasn't that. It was about his daughter, the one who took her own life. And there is kind of this weird murkiness, whether that was part of the truth, some of the truth, you know, used as kind of a part of a cover story. Like, Hollywood's a weird place, man. And like the deeper you learn about it, the more you realize like so much gray. Nothing's like, there are no good guys and bad guys. There's just Hollywood guys.
Yeah.
So yeah, like things like a girl's tragic death could be a PR thing to get out of making a movie look bad. Like, that's stuff that happens.
Yeah.
And the line of where that truth is very, very unclear.
Right.
There's been a lot of insiders, but we don't know, and there's a lot of highly volatile stuff about this.
Yeah.
And so, like, yeah, him just coming out and being this hero and releasing the Snyder Cut it's kind of a pipe dream in that sense. But he is allowed to apparently talk about this now.
Yeah.
And so he has come out and confirmed that it is a thing that exists.
Yeah.
How complete it is, again, is murky. We obviously know it's not fully complete. It's he's himself released things with still kind of previs effects and all that stuff. So, but now, I mean, this is not going to die anytime soon.
hell
No, this
no.
this will
Because,
easily last through 2020.
Yeah,
longer.
2020. You just gave the Snyder Cut movement a re-up for
I
2020.
mean, it's there. Like they
Yeah.
now can see it.
I mean,
and
there's going
point.
to be
There's gonna be a
plots
freaking
now that's
heist.
going to be
Yeah.
like national treasure, but
or,
instead of the
what's that, the
declaration,
bling
of-
ring. It's going to be like the bling
yeah,
ring.
it's going to be that. Except it's going to be this
Nerds.
cut. Get all the canisters. Get all the canisters.
Dude, that
of
would be
film.
a freaking great. We should write that. Comicbook.com's first movie script. It should just
Limited limited
like,
showings.
The Snyder Cut. It's just a heist film about a bunch of like bumbling nerds who are just trying to break into Zack Snyder's house and get the Snyder Cut.
Oh my god.
The only way I will
It's like a
accept
really
this exists
geeky
is if
Ocean's
Brandon
11.
Davis plays Zack Snyder.
No, Brandon Davis has to be like a leader of the crew. Like he's got to be like one of the heisters. Zack Snyder has to play Zack Snyder.
Oh,
Yes.
all right. Hope
he has to
listen.
play-
Ultimate meta.
And he has to
Ultimate
play like,
meta.
and he has to be like everybody's most outrageous like criticisms of Zack Snyder.
Oh no.
I want to
Like,
see this. So
He's just
bad.
got to have like
Alright.
a girl in a skimpy anime thing, like shooting a scene and a thing, and be like
My-
just cursing all the time, like "What the fuck you doing to my house?" Like,
I want to see this so bad.
like
All right, well, I guess
smoking
I
like
know
a
what I'm doing
cigarette the whole time,
right? Yeah.
I know what I'm doing tonight.
wearing a red Rambo headband, like smoking a cigarette and a wife beater with
Oh,
like
man.
heavy rock pumping through the speakers. Like, yeah, he's got to be hilarious. Like, that would be a great movie, like just a nerd
make that
heist
happen
film
now. Please make
about
that
the
happen.
Snyder Cut.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, why not? I mean, we could all use a change in profession and let them put more Hollywood money. But
apparently
all right, all right. That's neither here nor there. I got lost. I'm in a podcast. I'm not in my own
The
fantasy
further
world
we
of,
get,
writing a movie.
the further we get into like finding details and seeing this, the more it seems likely that the cut won't be released. It'll be more that documentary style.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah.
I think it should. I think it should just be if WB was smart and wanted to make peace with all this and make money off all of it, they would take my idea and make this documentary. Get Zach in there, like controlled, of course.
Yeah.
Here's what you
Well,
can say.
that's-
Here's what you can't.
Yeah, and that's what takes all
Yeah.
the chaos out of it.
Exactly.
And it takes all the legal problems out of it because
Yeah.
you are saying we can do this one, we can't do that, but we can reveal all this other stuff.
Yeah.
It really is a win-win.
Yeah, and just say like and under the general premise of hey, you try to make movies, it doesn't always go how you think. That's movies. And here's like what we were gonna do, and here and give him a chance to say, and make sure that you bring him out very controlled and just say, yeah, it would have been great. I would have loved to see this, but things don't always work
didn't,
out. But that's
yeah.
cool, and like calm these people down and move on.
Yeah.
Show
Yeah.
some scenes, give people a taste, move on. So we can all just move on. WB, please listen. Let's just put this to rest in
I
2020.
think that works.
Please.
All right, when we come back, we're going to talk about some new X-Men books. And we're going to do that. All right, so we're back. And this week we have another thing, but I want to make sure we have time to do this because we're not going to run too far over today. But we're on our Dawn of X track, and we got 3 new books because these are coming fast and furious. We got Excalibur number 3, Marauders number 3, and X-Men number 3. I read 2 out of the 3 again.
Which
read
is the ones you read.
I read Marauders and X-Men.
Oh, good choice.
Yeah, I didn't see Excalibur. Is it bad? Is Excalibur?
It's fine. It's
It's just
fine.
more
Matt
Captain
low
Britain
key
mystical
shading
stuff.
over here.
It's more of a like. There's actually more battle sequences, and the coolest part is that you get to see Shogo, the dragon, like
Oh yeah.
break up some fools, which is awesome. Like that's the most enjoyable part of the issue is when they're essentially facing a bunch of people, and you have this massive dragon, but Jubilee keeps referring to it as her
Sure,
little
son.
boy, right? So like, don't hurt my kid, but it's this giant dragon burning
That is
people.
exactly what I do, though. I understand.
Yes,
her. I'm
right. Yes,
like,
your children.
yeah,
Yes,
they're
Yeah, I mean,
sons.
if Megan was a Pokemon trainer, that would be Megan.
Gambit's still kind of a jerk. Gambit's still kind of being a jerk, and like the Britain stuff doesn't really move forward that much. So I mean, that's probably been my least entertaining, I guess, or least liked. Of
Yeah, I think
the
Fallen
series.
Angels is crawling over this as the second to last for me, and I think Excalibur's at the bottom right
It's just kind of boring.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's the
now.
biggest.
And it's
thing.
also the most like kind of old worldy X-Men.
yeah.
It just feels like a 90s X-Men story.
Yeah, and again, like every time the apocalypse scenes shine because he's just like the best part of the book, but there's not a ton of them. So that's pretty much Excalibur.
All right. Well, I'm gonna still read it and just to keep
Yeah.
up. But X-Men. So X-Men is kind of the one I want to talk about. X-Men's kind of. I was talking to Jim. It's just kind of a weird book right now. Like it feels kind of very meandering, like and kind of aimless. And I know Jonathan Hickman's whole joy with this was him being able to tell whatever X-Men story he wanted, issue per issue. But that concept doesn't feel, especially after House of X, doesn't feel like a great payoff of that whole House of X thing. You would think X-Men would be the driving force for some of the lingering, dangling threads from House of X, but it's not. And it's just become like this episodic, kind of weird, offbeat X-Men story. And that continued this week, very much so. Oh man, I'm trying to think about like what actually happened.
I mean, like because I agree with you. This series has been a very big surprise, not in the best way.
Oh my god, I remember what happened now. Oh yeah.
But it's like this book, and this has been this way in the last 2 issues. X-Men is full of cool moments. Like there's a awesome back and forth between Emma Frost and Jean.
Yeah, that is great.
That is fantastic. There's when you first meet like this new group of villains, which I'm sure we'll talk about in a minute, and not even villains, but this new group of adversaries. There's a great Cyclops moment. There's some great Sebastian Shaw moments. Like there's good stuff here as a story. And even like the premise going forward of like why they're doing this, and we can talk spoilers, I guess. Like the fact that they are hacking into the gates, the fact that why they want the medicine and stuff like that. That's really interesting. It's just as a whole, I agree. It feels kind of aimless. You're like, I'm getting from point A to point B. This is weird. This feels like filler. And then you put like a really cool cherry on the top, but everything else just feels kind of bland.
Yeah, and it still just feels like Hickman kind of playing around with, like you said, X-Men character interactions, putting together characters who don't normally interact, or at least don't interact in this way.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, we've seen Cyclops versus White Queen and Sebastian Shaw. We've seen Cyclops with White Queen, like in doing that. We've never really seen Sebastian Shaw, White Queen, and Cyclops like team up.
Yeah.
Or have cordial or like civilized conversations or deal with all of that. Like, and so we get those moments. But yeah, it just feels like it feels like Hickman has no interest in the classic kind of heroes, villains thing, because all the villains have so far been kind of like looked at as almost like jokes.
Yeah, very likable, very charming.
Like, we've had those weird dudes he brought back who turned themselves into monkeys.
Yeah.
The person they encountered on Akabo. Now these hoarder culture, who is this group of octogenarian old women scientists
great idea.
who have, invaded Krakoa and look like that old group. It looks like they stole the group of old women from Mad Max, Fury Road, and like brought that into an X-Men book. I mean, like the armor, same kind of thing. They reveal under the armor, it's a group of old women, and you're like, and I don't think Hickman is I don't think he's very good at writing like old women. They were very kind of like a Golden Girl stereotype.
They were
sniping at each other.
They were. I laughed. Like it did get me, but I can see. Yes.
It got me, and it's in and of itself.
Yeah.
The conversation's funny, but like again, when you pull back and you're like, this is an X-Men book.
Yeah.
Like what is happening right now? Like it's kind of weird, but it makes sense, and it does set up some intrigue about somebody who has already figured out the Krakoa is not as safe as we thought, which are these kind of loose threads that are building up and have been since House of X. Because there are suggestions in some timelines that something like Krakoa does fall or fail.
Yeah.
And there's calamity as a result. So we keep getting shades of that in different forms. The beasts that are running around, the assassination that's already taken place. Now somebody's figured out how to hijack the gates and like do all that and shut them down if they want, and has that technical power, or biotechnical power rather. So that's all kind of well and good, but like it feels like again, like Grant Morrison does weird stuff with superheroes.
Yes.
This feels like Jonathan Hickman trying to do Grant Morrison in some kind of ways.
No, it's an interesting comparison.
And Hickman is usually, in my readings of his other work, is usually more cerebral, scientific. It's more House of X-y.
Yeah.
His stuff.
It's very dense.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of layered ideas, but it's not as fantastical as Morrison's stuff. And here,
quirky. And Morrison does quirky.
Yeah.
Like the scenes when he did New X-Men with just like that class that Zorn was running with like the Bird Kid and the Angel and No Girl and like all that stuff, the gas fart guy, like that's Grant Morrison, and that's like a lot of what I see reflected in an issue like this. It's very New X-Men-y, except with those character interactions we talked about. So I get it. I hope like this all leads somewhere, and that like maybe we rein it in a little bit, and just somebody at Marvel says, okay, like we let you have free reign. Jordan, whatever his name is, says like, we let you have free reign, but let's bring this back in a little bit. Like, let's still make this one and use one of the other books for that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Like,
this is your flagship.
Yeah, exactly.
Book, and it doesn't feel that way. When I think of flagship for Dawn of X, I think X-Force and I think Marauders.
I mean, I think there should be another book that's just all about like Krakoa and life on Krakoa and like just the happenings, like almost
It's
like a sitcom.
really interesting stuff. Yeah, but it just seems like a weird fit.
Yeah, so that was X-Men. So we're going to see where that goes. Our top one, Marauders, is back. And it's weird because I'm criticizing X-Men for this, but like Marauders is the same thing. Marauders doesn't feel like yet like it has a solid serialized purpose. Each issue, as I said, I was just writing an article because they bring back somebody in this issue.
Yeah.
And I was writing about how each issue of Marauders has been arguably kind of more focused on sketching out a different side of what it's called Marauders, but it's really about Marauders and the Hellfire Trading Company.
Yeah.
And so there are 3 factions within that, and each issue has so far focused on a different faction. The first one was all about Kitty Pryde and her pirate boat. The second one was more about Emma Frost and her kind of leading the Hellfire Trading Company. And this one has been about Sebastian Shaw and his own plans within that company. To kind of wrestle control away from Emma Frost and now Kitty Pryde. And we find out in backstory that he had a plan for the Hellfire Trading Company, which was alluded to in issue 2, for his own pick for Red King. We didn't know who that was. This issue, we find out what that backstory is, which is that he, in Sebastian Shaw fashion, uses his power and influence in nepotism to jump his son, Shinobi Shaw, to the head of the Resurrection Protocol line and brings back Shinobi Shaw, who has had a kind of varied history. I mean, he was very much a 90s X-Men guy. I was looking at some of the art of him from the 90s, and there's a conversation to be made about just how gay some of the X-Men 90s stuff was, like, under the surface. There's just, like, him and Five and Cortez. A lot of the art, it's just, like, a lot of dudes with, like, very flamboyant hairstyles, like, hanging out.
Extreme and
you go back and look at it now. It's
they
different.
all had some very This was the show. I mean, this was also the angled shoulder pad era.
Yeah,
everybody had angled shoulder pads and pouches.
Yeah, so it's very funny when you go back and look at it all again. But so Shinobi Shaw, he was killed by Sebastian Shaw, but he came back during Necrotia, and he was one of the people left alive. Then he made a new upstart, and when the White Queen made her new Hellfire Club and did that whole kind of thing, like, he didn't want to get controlled by her, so he put his own hand through his head. Yeah. And that's where he died. And there's a horrific scene of him in a coffin with his hand still phased through his head as a skeleton, and it's pretty gruesome. But yeah, he comes back, and there's key things like Sebastian Shaw doesn't let him know how he died. And
he blames the
other. And at the end, he blames. Well, first he tries to make him the Red King. That fails when Kitty Pryde becomes the Red Queen. So we cut to the present day, and like now Shinobi Shaw instead becomes the Black Bishop under Sebastian Shaw, and he's given his own crazy, like, cloaked military frigate boat with guns, armor, all this stuff.
I couldn't help but think Thunder in Paradise. I saw that ship. I was like, what? Oh my god.
Yeah, and so he has his own kind of war vessel now, and so there's a pirate ship led by Kitty Pryde, but there's also a shady pirate ship run by Shinobi Shaw, which is going to be interesting. So, Marauders is building up different sides of this whole Hellfire Trading Company, and it's very interesting. And it's a difference. Like, it's just a limited set of main characters, just 3 really.
Yeah.
Kitty Pryde, White Queen, Black, and Sebastian Shaw are the main ones. But the intrigue of them and trying to. We're supposed to be unified under Krakoa, and there's a great talk between Shinobi and Sebastian Shaw, who hate each other about coming together. And I saw Xavier shake hands with Apocalypse.
It's a great
we can
moment.
Make peace.
And there's so many cool little things like what I feel like Jerry Duggan is doing that X-Men is not is and Hickman has a hand in all of these, right? So I mean I'm giving him credit as well. So I'm not just saying that, but one of the cool things is when you look at last issue, this issue plays out differently when you read that, because Sebastian Shaw, he talks to Shinobi as if there were already some plans in motion. We came to an agreement, but don't throw away the red suits yet. We still have plans for you. And how that conversation actually went down, right? He's completely manipulative and lying because Emma just did it. It wasn't, she didn't ask him. He didn't even know it was happening.
Well, that's what issue 2 was her snapping the whip and being reining him in.
But the way he delivers it to Shinobi is we came, it's very much like if anyone's ever watched SNL and seen the Eric. Eric, it's that, right? It's that posing thing, but then it totally didn't go down that way. There's a lot of little moments like that in this book. And so far, they show the 3 different headquarters. for the Hellfire Club, and the whole thing of like, you know, I haven't figured out if I want to kill you yet. Like
That's a great thing
his
between
son
him
keeps
and
telling him
Shinobi,
that
yeah.
throughout the whole issue. I still haven't figured that out. I kind of want to kill you. I don't like you at all.
Yeah, there's some ninja intrigue brought back into
Yeah.
this because Shinobi Shaw owes some kind of debt to a Yakuza boss that he has to go see. So there's a lot of intrigue set up, and Marauders still seems to be my favorite. Like, yeah, there's going to be some globe-trotting intrigue with like a little bit of kind of, you know, corporate intrigue and like,
and it plants just
piracy,
enough
like, yeah.
of that lighthearted, like Pyro shows up a couple times. Each one is money.
Pyro's great whenever he shows up. Like,
Kate
yeah.
does the whole little thing with Bishop and like the whole Bishy thing, like, you know, because he's like Kitty and she's like, oh, I don't know Bishy. And he's like, oh, yeah, you don't go by that anymore. It's
Yeah.
like, no, it's not. But she wants him to be
Oh,
her
the
Red
text
Bishop.
thread?
Yeah, the text thread.
Those are good uses of the charts.
Yeah,
Like, yeah.
it's just
the
a
text
fun
thread.
conversation, but it in one page gives you all you need to know about what's going on in that corner, which we'll probably see next issue, right?
yeah.
So it's always just teasing enough. And this book, if you think about it, aside from the first issue, really hasn't moved forward like the overall plot, but it hasn't suffered in entertainment value. So,
No.
you know, as opposed to X-Men, which
Yeah.
has spanned 3 different places, introduced all these new people, and we feel like we don't have enough meat.
Exactly.
You know, so it's crazy what you can do.
So yeah, check out Marvel's Marauders, and we got to get out of here. But finally, make sure you read Venom issue 20.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Especially you, Brandon Davis, because Venom issue 20 introduces something new: power of a symbiote that could explain how Tom Hardy's Venom could show up in the MCU.
Bum, bum, bum.
Bum, bum.
You have to add it to your collection.
All right, but that
Wait, can I make a quick plug?
yeah,
Ryan?
totally. Go ahead.
This is not a comic, but it does relate to Marvel. So I'll just say this. If you are caught up with My Hero Academia, under no circumstances should you miss next week's chapter. Because if you're a fan of Captain Marvel, you will be, not Captain Marvel, Captain America. Sorry, I love them both equally. If you are a fan of Captain America, you will find a lot of enjoyment out of this this issue that's coming out on
We're
Sunday.
getting a My Hero Academia Captain America.
I don't know.
Okay, you heard Megan.
Don't miss it.
Plugging that anime. Yeah, if you're not up on My Hero Academia anime, manga, you need to catch up on both.
Or
So,
Demon Slayer. You can ask Kofi.
Yeah, don't start with me. Tanjiro's my boy.
Yep.
Yeah, I haven't seen an anime there where I stood up and screamed, cut his effing head off several times throughout that anime in a good, rousing way, and might have shed a tear or two. Like, yeah, Tanjiro's my boy.
It's good.
Demon Slayer is the stuff. Like, yeah, you should really check that out. I like it more than My Hero. Don't tell anybody I said that, guys. All right,
it
that'll
didn't
do it
leave
for
this room.
Episode of Comic Book Nation. Thank you for tuning in. If you are just now getting acquainted for the show, we put up new episodes every Wednesday, every Friday on Comicbook.com, where you can subscribe to our RSS feed and get regular updates of the show. You can also find us on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher Radio, Google Podcasts, Google Playlists, iHeartRadio, and you can tell any Amazon Alexa device to fire up Comic Book Nation podcast, and it will start playing for you. Or you can find us on YouTube under the Comicbook.com page. Make sure you listen to both the Wednesday episodes where host Janelle Wheeler helps us sort through the mess of the week, and also our Friday episodes where we kind of go a little deeper and set you guys up for some good weekend listening. Check out both if you want to continue the discussion with us. Hit us up at the hashtag Comic Book Nation, or you can find me at Kofi Outlaw.
You can find me at Matt Aguilar CB.
And you can find me at Megan Peters CB.
That'll do it. Thank you for tuning in. If you guys love the show, go on iTunes, leave us a 5-star review. We just read a bunch and are going to send out